All right, so we're going to be graphing absolute value and piecewise functions for our review for semester 1 final and Algebra 2. So the first step is a piecewise function. What gives away that this is a piecewise function is we have f of x equaling two separate things here, an x minus 4 and a negative 1. So when we see that, we know that we have a piecewise function. So remember, when we have piecewise functions, we just want to graph these each individually. So we're going to graph the first line of x minus 4. So y equals x minus 4. Our y-intercept is negative 4. Our slope is 1, so up 1 over 1. And we're just going to dot that all the way across our graph. Okay. There we graph the first line. Now we're just going to graph the second line, which is negative 1. So y equals negative 1. That is a horizontal line at negative 1. So here we are. And once again, we're just going to dot that going across the entire graph for now. Next up is when we pay attention to this if. So if x is less than 2, we have the top line. If x is greater than or equal to 2, we have the bottom line. So we need to find where x is 2, which happens right here. And we're going to envision a horizontal line splitting this graph in two separate pieces. Our first graph, x minus 4, is only going to exist when x is less than 2. That would be the values to the left of 2. So here, at this point, is right where we intersect our line, and x is 2. So we're going to put an open circle there because it says only less than. And then we're going to go to the left of that line because that's where the less than values are. X is greater than or equal to 2 for our second line. They intersect right here when x is 2. We're going to do a closed circle because it says greater than. And then we're going to go to the right because that's where our greater than values are. After you've done that, you can feel free to clean up your graph if you would like to by getting rid of that vertical line that indicated where the different pieces were going to come from, as well as getting rid of the dashed lines from the other two graphs. So there's our piecewise graph. So now we need to state the domain and the range. So the domain for this are the x values. So they're all the values for x such that when we look at our x values going here from left to right, every single x value is included. Even right here, where we see an open circle, it's perfectly fine because right above it there's a closed circle. So this is x is in the real numbers. Range are our y values. So y such that if you take a look, we have a maximum value for y, which is right here at this horizontal line. Since that's the highest value we can go, y can equal negative 1. But then there's a gap right here. There's no graph in between those 2 points. So this is another maximum value at negative 2. So y can equal negative 1, or y could be less than negative 2 in this case, because we also have values that are going less than negative 2 that are below it. All right, next graph up is an absolute value graph. F of x is equal to the absolute value of x minus 4 plus 2. Those are our absolute value bars, those straight lines. Absolute value graphs always look like these. So if you remember transformations of graphs, you can just transform this graph and move it. Otherwise, you can make an xy chart. If you make an xy chart, you start with negative 2 to positive 2, and then you keep going till you get a v. I will tell you for this one, you'll have to go until at least 5. So instead, let's see if we remember transformations. So the value attached to your x here tells us how far we move in the x direction from the origin, which is 4. The value added to the end tells us how far we move in the y direction, which is 2. So we're going to start over 4 and up 2. Then we take a look at our slope, which is attached to our x. Our slope here is 1, so we'll go up 1 over 1 in each direction. And then we will simply connect them. So there's our absolute value graph. Stating the domain and range for this one. The domain are our x values. X, once again, can be all real numbers here. We can plug anything we want into x and it will work. Our range, though, if you take a look, we have a minimum point. So our graph is only above it. So our range, y would have to be greater than or equal to, this value is at 2, so y would have to be greater than or equal to 2. So it's graphing our piecewise and absolute value functions.